so far I've done a lot of negative videos about the industry, the watch industry, mainly because of the resale values and all that kind of good things. But I want to make a video that is trying to give a positive note on some negative videos. So there's this TikToker that did a video holding a Panerai in his hand saying that it's made in China. And then the watch regulator, a TikToker that is a former Omega watchmaker, he came up to confirm this and tell you that everything is trash in Omega, not trash, but made in China. And okay, I'm not gonna dispute what he says because he was a watchmaker there, and I have zero reasons not to believe. But there are watches that would fall into that category, made in China, and many that don't. And that's why we as consumers need to do our own research. Examples: Oris. Oris is a Swiss made, but you won't find individual components saying made in Switzerland. Bracelets, for example, cases. There's a bunch of different things that Oris does not do and sources, and some of them are sourced from Switzerland, but many, I assume, are sourced from other countries. I can't tell you if it's China or not, but it's probably a very decent assumption. Tudor used to do bracelets that said Swiss made, and they removed that logo, so that writing, so it's not Swiss made anymore, the bracelet. So whatever that Swiss made means, at least some of that value was made in Switzerland, and now it's not enough to call it Swiss made. So I assume Tudor moved to international bracelets, and who knows what else. And also, staying on the Tudor subject here, Adrian Bark did a very nice video on a factory tour at Tudor, and you can tell how organized they are. But I would argue that they are maybe a little too organized for my taste. You can see little robots going up and down, trays. Everything is very, very streamlined to achieve this price point with that quality. I mean, they are amazing quality. I had two Tudors. So I know they're very good quality, but at the same time, the human touch, everything that we say about craftsmanship, about times of old where we used to just wine our watches and all these good things are going away off the window, if you ask me, with the amount of automation that Tudor is doing in their factory. But are there any other good examples of good actors, companies that actually do things in Switzerland, at least for the most part? And yes, there are. And you'll be surprised with what I'm going to tell you. Obviously, one is Rolex. So I'm going to leave Rolex immediately out of this because even though they don't share a lot of things and a lot of information, it's known that they actually make their own steel in-house to their own factories in Switzerland. Their own gold, their own everything. So I'm not going to even touch on Rolex, Swiss made, obviously. But let's go back to something a little more gray, but to the positive side. Panerai. Panerai has a good amount of manufacturing in-house, including their cases, most of them except for the gold that they state that they source. All this, the cases, the bronzo, the steel, all those carbon cases, they're made in-house. The plates of their movements, the bridges are all made in-house, and they tell you that we source the barrels, the fork, the jewels. There's some things that they do source, and they tell you the crystals, the sapphire crystals, they source. But they do a lot of work in-house. So to say that the Panerai, because especially that guy in the first video, like he holds a Panerai in his hands. And maybe Panerai in the past was a little more controversial, using more generic movements and in some cases undecorated. It was only one case that was undecorated, really, and that's what started the fall down of Panerai. And then trends changed, sizes of watches became smaller, and that's what killed Panerai. If you ask me, it wasn't so much the decoration part. But Panerai are amazing watches and very distinct. I would buy one in a heartbeat. The other one is Breitling. Breitling has a whole video from about, at this point, it's probably close to 10 years old. That video shows a tour in the manufacturing facilities, and they show that they have 5 factories, one for the bracelets, one for the cases, one for the dials, one for the movements, one for the hands, and they are doing everything in-house, at least for the most part. Now, where do they source their raw materials from? I have no idea. There's a good chance they're Chinese. I don't know. But all that work is happening, or at least 10 years ago used to happen, in-house. Everything from the dials to the cases to the movement to the bracelet to the hands, down to the hands. And if we want to branch out a little bit towards Germany, Glashutte Original, they manufacture in-house 95%, just about, of their watches. They even make machines to work on their product. They're not machines that satisfy what they're trying to do, and they make them. They engrave the bridges by hand. They build their own rotors and the bearings of the rotor of the automatic winding. They make amazing stuff. And to think that in today's market you can buy a really, really good example of a Glashutte Original for $6,500 with 95% being made in Germany. I think the biggest issue is that we don't do our research very well. We don't branch out from the well-known brands or the usual suspects, the Rolexes of the world or whatever, or the Longines. Like Longines used to be like, it's a good watch, but it's not all 100% made in Switzerland. Far from it. That's how they keep the costs low. The Swatch Group, I mean, yes, they share components and everything, but I doubt that they make everything in Switzerland. If they were, your Hamilton watch will have a Swiss-made bracelet. Your Tissot will have a Swiss-made bracelet or case. So they don't. But and the watch regulator says that even Omega doesn't. So if Omega doesn't, whatever. And then you have the subject of in-house, because we're talking about in-house everything. And in-house can mean many things. And in-house it means that we are the same company. And if these manufacturers buy a factory in China to make balance wheels, or I don't know what else, they're technically in-house. As long as the most of the value, 60% of the value of the watch, is coming from Switzerland, is Swiss-made, according to the Swiss law. So, and they can call it in-house because the factory that builds those components belongs to them. Therefore, is in-house. I just wanted to touch on this subject because I see a lot of hate towards the Swiss manufacturers, how they all Chinese and they source the parts. And of course, they're going to source parts from China, because if they didn't, especially when it comes to raw materials, most likely your watches would be a whole lot more expensive they already are. And in the end of the day, made in China doesn't always mean bad. Your iPhones are all made in China, and you still pay $1,200-$1,500 to get them. So I don't see any complaints there, and it's a much more delicate process to make an iPhone than make a freaking case or a bracelet. But that's all. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think your watch is Chinese? Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one. Ciao.